and welcome to another episode of Anne's Theory. My name is Anne and today's subject is antihistamines. Antihistamines typically are small white pills that are taken to relieve allergy symptoms, but they can also help you with intolerances. And the reason for that is when you get an intolerance, you also get the histamine symptoms, because within the process the histamine is created the same way as an allergy. The only difference is allergies are caused by histamine attack, whereas intolerances are caused by food nutrients attack on the organ itself. Histamine is an amine that's created by white blood cells in a process of trying to solve the problem within the organ, trying to save it from the attacker. And what histamine does is it enlarges the openings of the small blood vessels so the white blood cells and other nutrients, proteins can get into the organ itself to fight the inflammation. So histamine is a mere creation of white blood cells to help them do their job, basically. Now, when we eat something, the food will be digested and transported to the bloodstream, where it then feeds the organs in our body. Now, when we eat something we are intolerant towards, the same process happens. It will be digested and transported around the body. But at one point or the other, maybe few points in your body, one organ or the other decides that they do not recognize the substance and they do not want the substance. So the organ starts fighting against the substance that is forced into the organ, regardless what the organ wants. And that can cause scarring, swelling, bruising, you name it. The organ can have many numerous problems because of the substance it can't recognize. What happens then? The organ will signal the brain to send in some forces for protection because something is attacking it. It doesn't understand why it's happening. All it needs is something to resolve the issue. And then we have lots of white blood cells coming to the scene, creating lots of histamine and making your life a hell, whereas it's already bad. But obviously there are no bacteria or anything to kill for white blood cells. So that's why intolerance attacks can be almost as severe as allergy attacks. But as I said before, intolerance symptoms can be relieved with antihistamines, and this is what we are talking about today. And currently there are two types of antihistamines out there. One is the tablet form and the other one is sort of natural, man-made for other purposes form antihistamines, and that our body uses constantly to relieve ourselves from the symptoms. Now, both kind of histamines also divide in two groups. Ones are that help straight away and the others are slow release antihistamines. The fast reaction antihistamines usually come in tablet form, but they're also natural forms, and I'm going to talk about these later. But at the moment, let's concentrate on tablet form and how they work. Now, typical ingredients of the tablet form antihistamines are such as the antihistamine itself, the active agent that will actually help you reduce the histamine. But tablets are not made just with the substance, they are also made with other items, and so far the most common thing that runs through almost all of the antihistamine pills is the fact that most of them contain lactose, sodium, starch and other little elements. And two things to point out straight away is that if you are lactose intolerant, if you can't have milk or dairy or anything, you can't have those tablets because most of them have lactose in them. There are a few tablets I've heard about that don't have lactose. It's either they don't consist it or they haven't listed them in the ingredients list, which is a bit naughty, but it does happen even nowadays. And the other thing that read out is starch, because starch and gluten are very similar, and people who can't tolerate gluten can't usually tolerate starch either. So bread and potatoes are out of your menu, like it or not, because if you can't tolerate it, you can't tolerate it. But if they have no effect on you, if you are not intolerant towards any of the ingredients, good for you, take them. They do relieve the intolerance symptoms, but they won't take away the cause, because cause is what you eat. You will still get damage on the inside, but it will have less effect on your body. Now, the other quick release antihistamine is very natural, very good for you and very healthy, although I am sure there are people out there who are also intolerant towards it, and that is plain old vitamin C, and the purest form of it is in a lemon. So what you do is, when you have an histamine attack, you squeeze the lemon juice into a little glass, about teaspoon, tablespoon. You have it as it is, or you put some water in it, or mix it with food. That will help to relieve the symptoms, like when you find it difficulty breathing or your nose is blocked up. This is awesome. This is really good thing to have, but only if you can tolerate vitamin C. There are other forms of vitamin C out there, such as apples, onions, garlic, and even chilies. Chilies are really, really good for you. But as with everything, if you can't tolerate that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can tolerate all of those things. But it is good to have some alternatives if you can tolerate most of the vitamin C. Chilies, for example, are found in a variety of foods like curries and things, and that's why some of the things that you can't tolerate, you can tolerate when you eat curries, because especially when they're hot, because firstly you sweat out the bad things that you can't have, and secondly there's a heap load of vitamin C there that will help you greatly. Now, the slow release antihistamines act a little bit differently. You have them in your body and they stay there for a while to keep the histamine under control. And lots of those things are readily available to you. Lots of things, lots of people can have, lots of people can't. You need to find your own, basically. The typical slow release histamines are basically almost any herbs you can find, and they're mostly green varieties such as basil, peppermint, nettle, green tea. But you need to be extremely careful with these things, because although they are amazing long-term antihistamines on a lot of people, lots of other people cannot have them. For example, I personally choke when I have green tea. So it's really a trial error at this point, or you can do the post-test as usual. It does work. Another overlooked item is salt, and it is really bad for you when you have excess amount of it, and it's almost as bad for you if you don't have enough of it. What you will probably find when you start measuring your pulse to find your intolerance is that once you come off the fast foods or any other foods that you're used to eating that consist a lot of salt, you will probably have more reactions to more things, because you're used to consuming an awful lot of salt. And like it or not, salt is actually an antihistamine, but it should be consumed wisely. Don't have it for the sake of it. But if your blood pressure is classified as well below normal, then it's quite likely that you are lacking this essential mineral in your diet. It is actually very good for you in small doses, and it does act as a natural antihistamine in long-term basis. So, but please be careful with it. Salt too much is no good for you. Now, there are also tablet forms out there that are not really antihistamines, but they can act as helpers when you have intolerance attacks. And one of them is ibuprofen, and the other one is aspirin. Although they are both classified as painkillers, really, they do act very differently. Ibuprofen does help you with inflammation, and when you have an intolerance attack, you will get quite a bit of inflammation there in your organ. So taking an ibuprofen or two when you really have serious issues will help you a little bit to relieve the inflammation in the area. It won't help you to stop being intolerant towards this substance, but it does help you relieve the symptoms. The other thing is aspirin, and aspirin is, well, I wouldn't say it's natural, but is quite natural blood thinner. And what happens is when you have aspirin, your blood gets thinner, it flows quicker, and you get rid of this substance quicker in your body. So these are the antihistamines. There are obviously a few more herbs and plants out there that you can have. It depends on your metabolism or how your genes are and how your intolerances are formed first place. Some things work for some people, some things don't. But if you're starting out, if you're in doubt, the one thing that you can do, and I don't really know anyone who is allergic to vitamin C. I've heard there's vitamin C intolerance out there, or allergy, but most people, majority people, can tolerate it. So if you do have an intolerance attack and you don't know what to do, you're really going for help, and just have some lemon juice. It will help you greatly. And then past the intolerance attack, you can figure out what's causing it and why. So that's it for today. I have all of my videos up on my website at annstheory.com. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I will try to answer the questions as best as I can. The next video I will explain once again what Anne's theory is and what I mean and why is it so important to understand this. But until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!